Their faces completely changed. They were born different from everybody else. Only a handful of families in the entire world carry this rare condition. And one of them lives right here in Indonesia. With every new generation, their faces transform in ways no one can predict. Some inherit sharp features, while others are born with completely altered bone structures. This isn't a myth. This is the story of the Manurung family. Despite the difficulties they faced, one of them managed to rise above all odds, building not only a career but also a community that looks up to him. From being judged in the streets to becoming celebrated online, their journey is unlike anything you've ever heard before. Today, we dive into the hidden details we didn't know before, so stay until the end. And don't forget to leave your thoughts in the comments. I really want to know what you think about this story. The Manurung family lives deep in North Sumatra, not in the bustling city center, but in a modest neighborhood where everyone knows each other. When we first arrived, the sun was beginning to set, painting the skies orange and pink. Children ran across the narrow roads, neighbors sat outside their houses, and the quiet hum of evening life filled the air. But inside one small house, a story was waiting to be told. This is where the Manurung family lives. For generations, they have carried a genetic condition so rare that doctors themselves are still puzzled. It causes their facial bones to form differently, leading to changes in shape, angles, and structure that are passed down but never in the same way in this family. No two faces look alike. One brother has a sharper jawline, another has high cheekbones, while a sister may inherit rounded features. The mutations don't follow predictable rules. It's as if nature itself is painting a new portrait every generation. When I first sat with them, I noticed how calm they were talking about it. This wasn't something they were ashamed of, it was simply who they were. But it wasn't always like this. The father, Mr. Manurung, shared that during his childhood, the condition was less understood. Neighbors whispered behind his back, classmates mocked his looks, and even teachers sometimes treated him differently. He grew up with the weight of being seen as other, and that shadow followed him well into his adult years. Yet, he made a choice. He decided his children would not grow up with the same silence he carried. He told me, "Every child of mine will stand tall no matter how their face looks. This is our blood. We don't run from it." The family had 4 children, and just like their father, their faces carried different traits. 2 of them looked closer to their mother's side, where the condition skipped a generation. The other 2 inherited strikingly unique features from their father's line. As the children grew older, the same cycle began. People stared at them in markets. Some avoided eye contact. Others pointed fingers. At school, jokes followed them in the hallways. But something shifted in this generation. Instead of hiding, they turned to the internet at first. It was small, posting funny clips on TikTok, dancing, lip-syncing, and sharing moments of their everyday lives. But soon, people noticed. Not just because of how they looked, but because of their energy. Their laughter was contagious, their confidence magnetic. One of the brothers, Rico, stood out the most. Despite having the most visible signs of the condition, he was fearless. He went live every night, talking to his followers, joking, and even singing, and people loved him. Within months, his following skyrocketed. Thousands tuned in daily to watch his live streams. Some came out of curiosity, but they stayed for his personality. He wasn't a victim of his condition, he was a star in spite of it. His income soon grew as well through gifts and support from his viewers. He was making more in a single month than many in his neighborhood earned in an entire year. But success came with challenges. With fame, new forms of bullying appeared. People online weren't always kind. Comments poured in, some supportive, some cruel. When I asked him how he dealt with it, Rico smiled. At first, it hurt, but then I realized, these people don't know me. They only see my face. If I stopped because of them, I would only prove them right. So instead, I let them talk, and I keep moving forward. It was clear that his resilience came from his father's lessons. The same man who was once mocked for being different had raised a son who turned that difference into strength. The mother, however, admitted it wasn't always easy to watch. She worried about the pressure fame brought into their lives. She told me, "Sometimes I think about the future. Will my grandchildren face the same? Will the faces keep changing? Or will it finally stop?" Doctors have no clear answers. The condition doesn't have a name familiar to most people. In fact, it's so rare that only a handful of documented cases exist globally. But in the Manurung family, it's not just a diagnosis, it's a legacy. What struck me the most was the unity within the household. Every evening, they gather around a small ring light and prepare for TikTok live sessions. The whole family participates, brothers, sisters, even their parents. Sometimes they dance, sometimes they sing, and other times they just talk to the viewers. It's become more than entertainment. It's therapy. A safe space where they can express themselves and connect with thousands who support them. One evening, as they went live, the viewer count shot up. 10,000 people tuned in, filling the chat with hearts and comments. I watched as the family laughed together, their faces glowing not because of their condition, but because of their joy. It reminded me of a verse their father mentioned. Perhaps you dislike something which is good for you. Al-Baqarah 2-216 for generations. They carried this burden, but now it had become their blessing. What once brought shame now brought opportunity. What once silenced them now gave them a platform. The Manurung family had turned their difference into their identity. And this is only the beginning. Comment below, do you think what the Manurung family is doing online can inspire others who feel different from society? I'd love to hear your thoughts. When we left off, the Manurung family was gathered around their ring light, live streaming to thousands of people. Their laughter filled the room, their voices carried through the chat, and for a moment, it was as if the whole world was inside that small house in North Sumatra. But behind the glowing screens and joyful smiles lies a history far deeper, a history shaped by resilience, sacrifice, and an unshakable belief in family. The story of the Manurungs does not begin with TikTok. It begins decades ago, in a tiny village where survival was more important than recognition, and where difference often meant isolation. The grandfather of the family, whose features first showed the syndrome, was a farmer. Every day, he worked the rice fields barefoot, his hands thick with calluses, his back bent under the weight of harvest sacks. He had little, but he carried something unusual: facial features that constantly drew attention. In his time, medical explanations were non-existent. Villagers often believed his condition was the result of a curse, or punishment from unseen forces. He carried that stigma throughout his life. Yet, he endured, he married, raised children, and passed on not just his features, but also his strength. Among his children was the father of the current family, Mr. Manurung. It was he who would later make the decision that no child of his would live ashamed. Growing up, Mr. Manurung faced relentless teasing. Children mocked the shape of his jaw, the way his face seemed to shift as he grew. Teachers dismissed him as someone who would not succeed academically. But he proved them wrong. He wasn't the loudest in class, but he was determined. He taught himself through books he borrowed, and when work opportunities came, he never refused. He told me, "They said I couldn't work because people would not accept me. But when you're hungry, you don't care about opinions. You only care about putting food on the table." And that's what he did. Years later, when he met his wife, she didn't see his condition as a barrier. She saw him as a man who carried the weight of his family with pride. Together they built the foundation for the generation we see today. But what makes this family story extraordinary is how the condition behaves across generations. Doctors who studied their case explained that the facial changes don't appear the same way in every child. It's as though the genetic code rewrites itself each time a new life is born. One child may have a broad forehead, another a narrow chin, another unusually pronounced cheekbones. The mother, who carries no trace of the condition, gave birth to children with faces unlike hers, yet unlike each other. It is this unpredictable inheritance that gives the family its unique story. No one knows what the next generation will look like. At school, the Manurung children grew up with constant attention. Sometimes it was positive, teachers encouraged them to focus on their studies, but more often, it was ridicule. Rico, the son who would later become famous on TikTok, remembers those days vividly. He once shared, "I used to go home and cry in silence. I didn't want my parents to know because they already had too many worries. But deep inside I felt broken." Yet that same boy turned his pain into purpose. When TikTok came into his life, it wasn't just entertainment, it was escape. On the internet, he could create his own stage, control his own narrative, and show the world a version of himself that wasn't defined by judgment. And it worked. By the time Rico had built a following, his siblings joined him. What began as his personal journey soon became a family project. The sisters, initially shy, began appearing in live sessions. The younger brother, more reserved, found his voice through music, singing songs that soon became favorites among their viewers. Even their mother appeared, often smiling quietly in the background, as if her presence alone was enough to assure the children that they were not alone. And then came their father. He, too, joined the live streams not as a performer, but as a presence of wisdom. When viewers asked difficult questions about the family's condition, it was often the father who answered calmly. "This is who we are," he would say. "We were created this way. If you respect us, we will respect you. If you don't, then may you learn kindness one day." The chat would flood with support, and the family's bond became even clearer to the world. But with visibility came responsibility. People from other parts of Indonesia began messaging them. Some wrote to say how inspired they were. Others revealed that they too had unique conditions, but had hidden themselves for years. One message came from a young girl in Java who had a rare skin disorder. She told the Manurungs that seeing them online gave her courage to walk outside without hiding her face. The family read her message aloud during a live stream, and for a moment, everyone watching felt the weight of their impact. This wasn't just entertainment anymore, it was hope. Yet, not everything was easy. Behind the laughter, the family faced financial struggles. Yes, the TikTok income helped, but life in rural areas meant challenges remained: limited healthcare access, unpredictable internet connections, and the constant pressure of being different. One night during a blackout, the family couldn't go live. Instead, they gathered in candlelight, singing songs together. The next day they uploaded a short clip of that moment, and to their surprise, it went viral. Millions watched the video of a family singing together in the dark, faces glowing in the warm candlelight. Comments poured in, "This is real happiness, they have nothing, yet they have everything." The Manurungs had unintentionally shown the world that joy doesn't depend on perfection, it depends on love. What fascinated me most was how the community around them had changed. Years ago, neighbors whispered about their unusual looks. Today, those same neighbors bragged about living near a famous TikTok family. Children who once teased them now wanted to appear in their videos. It was proof that perception can change, not because the condition disappeared, but because the family refused to let shame control them. As we continued our visit, I noticed something powerful. Every child in the Manurung family had dreams far bigger than their village. Rico wanted to expand into YouTube, to create longer videos sharing his daily life. His younger sister dreamed of becoming a singer. The eldest daughter, who carried softer features, wanted to pursue teaching, to show students that difference doesn't mean limitation. Even their mother, quietly listening, confessed she wanted to write down their family's story one day. And their father, he only said, "I want to live long enough to see my grandchildren grow strong." The night we left, the family went live once more. This time, the viewership climbed higher than ever. 12,000 people tuned in. They danced, sang, and laughed as if the world outside no longer mattered. Watching them, I realized something important. The Manurungs had not just accepted their fate, they had rewritten it. Where once there was silence, now there was song. Where once there was shame, now there was pride. And where once there was isolation, now there was connection with thousands of people worldwide. Their faces may change with every generation, but their spirit remains the same, unbroken, unshaken, and unafraid. Tell me in the comments if you were in the position of the Manurung family. Would you have the same courage to show yourself to the world, no matter what people say? The Manurung family thought their journey would remain within Indonesia. They never imagined their story would travel across oceans, touching people they would never meet in person. But that's exactly what happened. One video, just one, changed everything. It was a short clip, no more than a minute long. The family sat in their living room, playing a local song while Rico sang, his siblings clapping in rhythm. Their mother smiled softly in the background, while their father leaned against the wall with quiet pride. Someone clipped the video, added subtitles in English, and reposted it. Within days, it spread across social media platforms worldwide. Suddenly, people in America, Europe, and the Middle East were watching the Manurung. They weren't just another TikTok family anymore. They had become a global story. At first, the family didn't even realize how viral they had become. Their internet connection was too weak to process all the notifications flooding their accounts. It was a neighbor who rushed to their house one morning, phone in hand, shouting, "You're on Instagram, you're on YouTube. People are talking about you in other countries." The family gathered around in disbelief. There they were, on screens in languages they didn't even understand. Some were curious about their condition, others were inspired by their positivity, and many simply admired their closeness as a family. The sudden attention brought both blessings and challenges. Blessings because opportunities started arriving. Brands reached out to collaborate. News outlets wanted interviews. A documentary team even contacted them about filming their daily life. Challenges because with recognition came criticism on a larger scale. It was no longer just local bullies or online trolls. It was international voices, some filled with ignorance, others with cruelty. But just as before, the Manurungs faced it together. They turned hate into fuel, criticism into comedy, and negativity into strength. One of the most remarkable things about the family is how they never allowed fame to divide them. In many cases, when one member becomes successful, others fade into the background. But not here. Every live session still featured the whole family. If one sibling was missing, viewers would ask, "Where's your sister? Where's your brother?" Their strength wasn't in an individual, it was in their unity. As the months went by, Rico's income grew steadily. What had once been $500 per month soon reached thousands. For the first time, the family was able to renovate parts of their home, buy better equipment, and even consider future investments. But money wasn't their main focus. When I asked them what they would do with their success, their mother answered first, "We want education for the children. We want them to have choices we never had." Her words carried a truth many viewers didn't see. Behind the smiles and live streams, there was still a simple family longing for stability. International fame also brought unexpected encounters. Messages started arriving from families with similar rare genetic conditions. Some from India, some from Africa, even one from South America. They all said the same thing: "Watching you gives us courage." One father from Brazil wrote that his son, born with a rare craniofacial condition, refused to leave the house out of shame. But after seeing the Manurungs online, the boy agreed to go outside for the first time in months. The family read that message aloud on one of their streams, tears streaming down their faces. They had never met this boy, never seen his home, but they had touched his life from thousands of miles away. But with recognition came a question. What does the future hold for a family whose faces change with every generation? Doctors who heard about them reached out, offering to study their genetic history. Some suggested that further research could reveal whether the condition might continue, fade, or evolve in unexpected ways. The family was hesitant. On one hand, they wanted answers. On the other, they feared being treated like test subjects. For now, they chose to live as they always had, accepting who they were, without waiting for science to explain it. One evening, I sat outside with the father as he watched his children prepare for another live session. The sounds of laughter spilled out from the house. He said quietly, "When I was young, I never imagined this. I thought my life would be filled with shame until I died. But now, look at them. They are not hiding. They are shining." His eyes glistened with pride. It was clear that for him, the true victory wasn't fame, but freedom, the freedom for his children to live openly without fear. But life wasn't only digital. In their small town, fame had changed the way people treated them. Once avoided, now they were greeted warmly. Once mocked, now admired. Neighbors often came to watch their live sessions in person, sitting outside the window or crowding in their living room. The Manurung house had become a hub of energy, laughter and curiosity. Children who once whispered behind their backs now ran up to them asking for selfies. Even local officials acknowledged them, inviting them to community events as guests of honor. It was a complete transformation, proof that one family's courage could shift an entire community's perspective. Still, the family remained grounded. Their mother continued cooking simple meals. Their father still worked part-time labor when needed, and the children still did chores. Fame hadn't changed their identity, it had only amplified it. But beneath the joy, a lingering fear remained. What if the fame disappeared as quickly as it came? What if the next generation struggled again with the same stares, the same isolation? The parents often discussed these questions late at night. They didn't want their children to build their entire future on social media. That's why education became their priority. Rico, despite his growing success, enrolled in courses to improve his skills. His siblings focused on finishing school. They wanted to be more than just a viral family. They wanted to build lasting stability. One of the most moving moments came when the eldest sister shared her dream publicly for the first time. She said, "I want to be a teacher, not just for subjects, but for life. I want to teach children that no matter how they look, they are valuable. I want every classroom to be a place where no child feels ashamed of their face." Her words resonated deeply with viewers. Thousands commented, offering encouragement and support. It was clear the Manurungs weren't just inspiring others, they were shaping leaders within their own family. Their rise also brought new opportunities for cultural pride. They began showcasing traditional Botox songs and dances in their streams. They wore local attire, explained customs, and shared the beauty of their heritage with the world. In doing so, they became ambassadors of more than just resilience. They became ambassadors of Indonesian culture. As night fell one evening, the family prepared another live stream. This time, they had a special plan. They dedicated the session to everyone around the world who felt different, who had ever been told they weren't beautiful enough, normal enough, or worthy enough, or worthy enough. The father spoke first. "You may see our faces and think they're strange, but to us they are blessings. Every face is a story. Every story is worth telling. Don't hide, don't be ashamed, stand tall." The chat exploded with hearts and supportive messages. Thousands of viewers from across continents sent love, gifts, and words of gratitude. In that moment, it didn't matter what their faces looked like. What mattered was the courage they carried, the unity they shared, and the hope they gave. The Manurung family had become more than a viral sensation. They had become a mirror reflecting back to society the truth that difference is not weakness, but strength. And as the night ended, their faces lit by the soft glow of the ring light, it was clear that this story was far from over. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think the Manurung family's story should be turned into a full documentary for the world to see? I'd love to know what you think. The Manurung family has already shown us that difference is not a weakness, it is a story waiting to be told. But their journey is not just about the past or the present. It's about the future, what comes next for a family whose faces change shape with every generation. By now, the family's name was known across Indonesia and even beyond. Media outlets continued to write about them, fans continued to follow, and every live stream pulled in thousands of viewers. But behind the scenes, life remained filled with everyday struggles. Electricity blackouts still happened. The internet sometimes cut off in the middle of streams. The house, though improved, was still modest. And yet, that was the beauty of the Manurungs. They weren't pretending to be something they weren't. They were showing life as it was, real, raw, and unfiltered. As their influence grew, invitations began pouring in. Schools wanted them to speak about bullying. Community centers wanted them to share their story. Even local government officials recognized them as examples of perseverance. For the children, it was overwhelming at times. They had gone from being mocked in classrooms to standing in front of hundreds of students as role models. When I asked the elder sister how it felt, she smiled shyly. "It feels strange. Once, they laughed at me. Now they clap for me. But maybe that's what life is, people change when they understand you." Her words carried wisdom far beyond her years. But fame doesn't erase fear. The parents worried constantly about what the future would look like. Would their children always find strength in each other? Would society remain supportive? Would the next generation face the same cycle of stares and whispers? The father confessed one night, "I don't worry about myself anymore, but I think about my grandchildren. Will they carry the same faces? Will the world treat them kindly, or will they suffer again?" His voice cracked as he spoke, revealing the weight of his thoughts. Science may never fully explain their condition. Doctors continue to study rare cases like theirs, but answers are slow. And so, the family has learned to live without waiting for explanations. Their philosophy is simple. Every face is unique, every generation is different, and every difference carries its own beauty. This belief has become their shield against judgment, and their torch for others to follow. But what makes the Manurungs remarkable is not just how they survive, it's how they thrive. Instead of letting the world define them, they define themselves. Instead of hiding, they stepped into the light. Instead of being silent, they chose to speak. And slowly, society began to shift. Children in their town no longer whisper behind their backs. Instead, they look up to them as local celebrities. Teachers who once overlooked them now proudly share their story with new students. Neighbors who once kept their distance now join their live streams with joy. The transformation of the community is as inspiring as the transformation within the family itself. It proves something powerful. Acceptance often begins with courage, and courage, when shown, becomes contagious. International recognition also continued to grow. Clips of their live streams were translated into multiple languages. Comment sections were filled with support from people in countries they had never even heard of. One fan from the Middle East wrote, "Your family shows us what real love looks like. You remind us that beauty is not in the face, but in the heart." Another from Europe wrote, "I was afraid to go out because of my disability. After watching you, I finally stepped outside today. Thank you." The family read these comments during a stream, tears falling as their viewers sent waves of hearts. And then came perhaps the most touching moment of all. During one live session, Rico addressed the audience directly. He said, "People used to laugh at my face. They used to call me names. But today you call me brother, friend, even inspiration. I want every child watching this to know your face does not decide your future. Your courage does." The chat exploded. Thousands of viewers wrote messages of support. It was no longer entertainment, it was a movement. As their platform grew, the family decided to use it for good. They began raising awareness about bullying. They created content encouraging acceptance, and they even started small fundraising efforts to help other families in need. For them, success wasn't just about money or fame. It was about giving back, about making sure no other child felt the loneliness they once felt. Their dreams also began to expand. The sisters wanted to create music content. The younger brother wanted to learn filmmaking. Rico wanted to build a YouTube channel that went beyond entertainment, one that told real stories about people who are different, and their parents. They wanted to see all of this happen before their time ended. One evening, as I prepared to leave their home after my visit, the father said something I will never forget. He looked at his children, laughing together in the background, and said softly, "Maybe our faces will keep changing every generation. Maybe it will never stop, but one thing will never change: the love we carry. That is the face of our family, and it will remain forever." Those words echoed in my mind long after I left. The Manurungs are not just a story of a rare condition. They are a story of resilience, unity, and courage. They show us that difference does not diminish value, it enhances it. Their faces may change with every generation, but their legacy remains constant. A legacy of strength, a legacy of hope, a legacy of love. And so, as their live streams continue, as their laughter echoes through the small house in North Sumatra, and as their story travels across the world, one truth remains. The Manurung family is not defined by how their faces look. They are defined by how their hearts shine. Tell me in the comments, what do you think is the most powerful lesson we can all learn from the Manurung family's story? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you for watching this video. Click here to watch another video that might interest you.